Hey everybody, day 142 of the daily Bible reading. So, we are in Numbers chapter 25, Psalm 142, and 1 Corinthians 9. So, we're moving right along here. Almost done with the book of Numbers, and then we'll move into Deuteronomy. So we've read Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, now we're in Numbers. And then in the New Testament, we've read Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, and now we're in 1 Corinthians. So I'm going to be reading out of the Living Bible today. And I'm going to get right into it. I have a busy day. Where are you guys watching from? Why don't you put it in the chat where you're watching from? Actually, I'm going to go over to this other part here, and then that way I can see the chat. Why was that yesterday's chat? Okay. Don't want to see yesterday's chat. I want to see today's chat. Day 142. All right. Chat. All righty. Now we can see it. Okay. Numbers chapter 25. While Israel was camped at Acacia, some of the young men began going to wild parties with the local Moabite girls. That's why, we're in this world as born-again believers, but we're not of it. And God doesn't want us, accepting the culture and the ways of the world. And it's so important who you hang out with, because that's who you're going to become. Bad company corrupts character. And it's the truth. It's just the way it is. All right. Okay. I'm on that one. So just have to be really, really careful what you do. Who you hang out with. All right. Who you hang out with. We're going to get on that. All right, guys. And so anyway, these guys would mingle with the other nations, and then they would pick up their gods. They would start worshiping their gods, and God didn't want them mingling with them and intermingling and intermarrying with these other nations, because what fellowship hath light with darkness? So we have to we're in this world, and we are here to witness to the world. But we're set apart. We are born-again believers, and we worship the true God, the one and only true God. And so if you start hanging around some of these people, if you don't have a bigger influence on them, they're going to have an influence on you. And next thing you know, you're going to be in full-blown sin. Don't want to go down that road. So that's what happened here. We're in Numbers chapter 25, verse 2. These girls also invited them to attend the sacrifices to their gods. And soon the men were not only attending the feast, but also bowing down and worshiping the idols. Before long, all Israel was joining freely in the worship of Baal, the god of Moab, and the anger of the Lord was hot against his people. He issued the following command to Moses. Execute all the tribal leaders of Israel. Hang them up before the Lord in broad daylight, so that his fierce anger will turn away from the people. So there was about 1,000 leaders that started worshiping these other gods, and God said, get rid of them. So Moses ordered the judges to execute all who had worshipped Baal. So there was 24,000 people. 1,000 of those were leaders in Israel. But one of the Israeli men insolently brought a Midianite girl into the camp right before the eyes of Moses and all the people as they were weeping at the door of the tabernacle. Good afternoon, Pastor Addie. How are you? It's good to see you. All the way from Liberia, West Africa. So they didn't even care about the sin that they were in. They just flaunted it right in front of everybody. This guy brought this woman, this Midianite girl, right in and took her in his tent. Didn't even care. And that's what happens when you start messing around, in the world, and maybe, sin. At first you kind of feel guilty about it, but the more that you do it, you become used to it, and then you start flaunting it, and your conscience is seared, really. You don't even care anymore. God said we're supposed to hate what God hates and love what he loves. And so we have to be really careful that we don't get, mixed up in the world. So he brought her into this, and all the people were repenting and crying at the door of the tabernacle. When Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron, the priest, saw this, he jumped up, grabbed a spear, and rushed after the man into his tent where he had taken the girl. He thrust the spear all the way through the man's body and into her stomach. So the plague was stopped, but only after 24,000 people had already died. Sin is terrible, We should be angry at sin. Phinehas was angry at what these guys were doing. And it pleased God, and the plague was stopped. Then the Lord said to Moses, Phinehas, son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron, the priest, has turned away my anger, for he was angry with my anger, and would not tolerate the worship of any god but me. So I have stopped destroying all Israel as I had intended. Now because of what he has done, because of his zeal for his God, and because he has made atonement for the people of Israel by what he did, I promise that he and his descendants shall be priests forever. The name of the man who was killed with the Midianite girl was Zimri, son of Salu, a leader of the tribe of Simeon. The girl's name was Cosbi, daughter of Zur, a Midianite prince. Then the Lord said to Moses, destroy the Midianites, for they are destroying you with their wiles. They are causing you to worship Baal, and they are leading you astray, as you have just seen by the death of Cosbi. And that was Numbers chapter 25. We're on day 142 of the daily Bible reading. So let's go over to Psalm chapter 142. We're almost done with the book of Psalm, then we'll go into Proverbs. Okay, Psalm 142, I'm reading out of the Living Bible. David wrote this. How I plead with God, how I implore his mercy, pouring out my troubles before him. For I am overwhelmed and desperate, and you alone know which way I ought to turn to miss the traps my enemies have set for me. There's one just over there to the right. No one gives me a passing thought. No one will help me. No one cares a bit what happens to me. Then I prayed to Jehovah. Lord, I pled, you are my only place of refuge. Only you can keep me safe. Hear my cry, for I am very low. Rescue me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, so that I can thank you. The godly will rejoice with me for all your help. And that's Psalm 142. Looks like it's going to be pretty quick today, this Bible reading, right? So that'll give you more time to go back and watch some of the replays of the other ones, or keep reading. Get as much of the word in you as you can. Let's go over to 1 Corinthians chapter 9. This is Paul talking. He said, I am an apostle, because some of the people were questioning whether he was a true apostle or not. He said, I am an apostle, God's messenger, responsible to no mere man. I am one who has actually seen Jesus, our Lord, with my own eyes. And your changed lives are the result of my hard work for him. If in the opinion of others I am not an apostle, I certainly am to you, for you have been won to Christ through me. This is my answer to those who question my rights. Or don't I have any rights at all? Can't I claim the same privilege the other apostles have of being a guest in your homes? If I had a wife, and if she were a believer, couldn't I bring her along on these trips, just as the other disciples do, and as the Lord's brothers do, and as Peter does? And must Barnabas and I alone keep working for our living while you supply these others? What soldier in the army has to pay his own expenses? And have you ever heard of a farmer who harvests his crop and doesn't have the right to eat some of it? What shepherd takes care of a flock of sheep and goats and isn't allowed to drink some of the milk? And I'm not merely quoting the opinions of men as to what is right. I'm telling you what God's law says. For in the law God gave to Moses, he said that you must not put a muzzle on an ox to keep it from eating when it is treading out the wheat. Do you suppose God was thinking only about oxen when he said this? Wasn't he also thinking about us? Of course he was. He said this to show us that Christian workers should be paid by those they help. Those who do the plowing and threshing should expect some share of the harvest. We have planted good spiritual seed in your souls. Is it too much to ask in return for mere food and clothing? You give them to others who preach to you, and you should. But shouldn't we have an even greater right to them? Yet we have never used this right, but supply our own needs without your help. We have never demanded payment of any kind for fear that, if we did, you might be less interested in our message to you from Christ. Don't you realize that God told those working in his temple to take for their own needs some of the food brought there as gifts to him? And those who work at the altar of God get a share of the food that is brought by those offering it to the Lord. In the same way, the Lord has given orders that those who preach the gospel should be supported by those who accept it. Yet I've never asked you for 1 penny, and I am not writing this to hint that I would like to start now. In fact, I'd rather die of hunger than lose the satisfaction I get from preaching to you without charge. For just preaching the gospel isn't any special credit to me. I couldn't keep from preaching it if I wanted to. I would be utterly miserable. Woe unto me if I don't. If I were volunteering my services of my own free will, then the Lord would give me a special reward. But that's not the situation. For God has picked me out and given me this sacred trust, and I have no choice. Under this circumstance, what is my pay? It is the special joy I get from preaching the good news without expense to anyone, never demanding my rights. And this has a real advantage. I am not bound to obey anyone just because he pays my salary. Yet I have freely and happily become a servant of any and all so that I can win them to Christ. When I am with the Jews, I seem as one of them, so that they will listen to the gospel and I can win them to Christ. When I'm with the Gentiles who follow Jewish customs and ceremonies, I don't argue, even though I don't agree, because I want to help them. When with the heathen, I agree with them as much as I can, except, of course, that I must always do what is right as a Christian. And so, by agreeing, I can win their confidence and help them too. When I'm with those whose consciences bother them easily, I don't act as though I know it all and don't say they are foolish. The result is that they are willing to let me help them. In other words, Paul's saying, I am to, whatever I need to be to whoever I need to be to win them over to Christ. Without sinning, of course. If he's with the heathen, he's not going to do what they do to win them to Christ, I do this to get the gospel to them and also for the blessing I myself receive when I see them come to Christ. In a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets first prize. So run your race to win. To win the contest, you must deny yourselves many things that would keep you from doing your best. An athlete goes to all this trouble just to win a blue ribbon or a silver cup, but we do it for a heavenly reward that never disappears. So I run straight to the goal with purpose in every step. I fight to win. I'm not just shadow boxing or playing around. Like an athlete, I punish my body, treating it roughly, training it to do what it should, not what it wants to. Otherwise, I fear that after enlisting others for the race, I myself might be declared unfit and ordered to stand aside. And that is 1 Corinthians chapter 9. And that finishes day 142 of the daily Bible reading. So I'm glad you guys joined me, and I'm glad my voice held out for this. So I'll be back on here next time I'm back on here. I will be doing day 143. So we'll read Numbers 26, Psalm 143, and 1 Corinthians chapter 10. So I want to wish all, hey Mark, how are you? And I want to wish all of you a happy rest of your day. Doreen, John, Pastor Addie from Liberia, West Africa. That was a short reading, but go back and re-listen to it and keep up with us because we're reading the Bible all the way through. So, all right, guys, have a good rest of your day wherever you're watching from. And I will see you on here next time with day 143 of the Daily Bible Reading. God bless you.